Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon, and it's always a pleasure being here with you. So grab your popcorn, grab your drink, grab your pills, and sit tight. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. Today I'm going to open back with a very disturbing turn of events unfolding right before our very eyes. Over the past couple of days, we've been hearing, some of you might have heard of the issues that the Public Workers Union are having. I'll begin by sharing with you a clip of Mr. Brian Grimes, the president of the PWU, Public Workers Union, as he spoke to the media on Tuesday, the 18th of February, 2025.
As I stand here, I am incredulous. We have received a document from the Office of the Cabinet Secretary demanding that we provide the register at our AGM held March 28, 2024, demanding that we demonstrate that there was consultation in regards to the dues, which were amended by a decision taken by our members at the AGM. We find this fascinating. We find this out of bounds. There are hardly any adjectives I can use to describe how, in our view, we view this as out of bounds. First of all, under Article 8 of the PW Constitution, it states clearly that the AGM is the highest decision-making body, right? So we don't have to go around as foot soldiers on the ground. This is constitutional, right? To discuss matters at that level. So we here at the union are curious as to what the position of cabinet is on this, because as I speak here, yes, we have sent back correspondence in regards to it. As I speak here, the funds, the union dues, have practically been garnished, and we are unable to continue our operations here at the PW, right? So this is a very, very serious matter. I don't know what the origin of this matter is, really. We have done our due diligence. Our members have decided. We had a robust discussion, and we were fully correct at the AGM held in March. And in fact, in terms of the implementation, several months after it was implemented, it will be implemented, which is January. So yes, that took place, and we did all we had to do. We followed all procedure, and the members themselves decided. This was not a walk in the park or a frolic by the board of the Grenada Public Workers Union. This was to ensure the survival of our organization. And now we have, it seems as though the cabinet have interfered in the affairs of the Grenada Public Workers Union, and we are aghast and we are appalled at this. Hopefully this can be rectified peacefully, because as it stands now, we are unsure of how we are going to pay our staff at the end of the month. So since December, the latter part, let's say the second bi-monthly part of December of last year, we have not gotten any dues, and it goes up to now. So what is really going on? They are hamstringing the operations. I would say government is hamstringing the operations of the union, and we find that very sad. We hope it is just some sort of misunderstanding, administrative error, as opposed to a definitive policy decision to hamstring the affairs of the PW, the operational affairs of the PW. That will be union busting 101. So I think the matter is serious enough for it to go public. We have since sent back correspondence to the office of the CAPSEC, and we hope there can be a peaceful resolution to this matter. But in fact, it is no light matter.
The attempt by the cabinet through the cabinet secretary, is set out to directly meddle and destroy the affairs of the Public Workers Union. Two letters came from the Secretary of the Cabinet, Ms. Cavellette. The first letter requested attendance record of the PWAGM, the minutes of the AGM, provide evidence of extensive consultation across the public service. Now, the government, the cabinet of Grenada, is attempting to get involved in the business of the union, which is separate from the executive. Totally. The union is totally separate. The second letter requested, again, minutes of the AGM, attendance records, and evidence of consultation. What has that to do with the Cabinet of Grenada? This is something serious and severe enough for persons nationally to take a strong look into. Amongst all of that, there is an interesting development. Plans are in train, and listen carefully, to go to Parliament to pass a bill naming all workers essential workers. Now you might wonder what was that to do with this. The mischief in this is to ensure that workers will not be able to take industrial actions. Not sure if you know that. Essential workers, police officers, and so they don't normally, I think it's even against the law for them to take part in industrial action, like sick out and all that kind of stuff. So apparently, our people loving administration is planning to go to court, to go to parliament, sorry, to pass bills making all workers essential workers. Folks, I feel like I'm having a nightmare. I mean, is this for real? Are we living in 2025? Sometimes I feel like we're living in what was called the dark ages, where we have a decline in intellectual, cultural, and economic advancement being governed by a centralized government. The Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, did say and spoke of administrations not using the power that they have. And so I'm guessing here that he is using up all his powers. What we are witnessing here is a clear case of union busting. And therefore, the nation, all workers, all organizations, all unions need to stand in solidarity with the Public Workers Union, the PWU. That interference is not acceptable and should not be tolerated. And this is not about PWU. This is about a government that is running a dictatorship ruling. And it has to be nipped in the bud. If there are only 2.5 years in office and we are experiencing this level of dictatorship, Robert Mugabe style dictatorship, then God help us if we have to go up to 2027, or worse yet, have them return to power. God help us. And you know what? This is the most submissive and docile I have seen unions on this island, and the workers in Grenada in my lifetime, my adult lifetime, should I say. They're just there. And yet still, you're trying to get into their business, trying to bust the union, months upon months. The unions, especially the teacher unions, marched and marched and marched in protest in the year 2020, 21, 22, right up to the 2022 elections. And the then administration didn't try getting into and destroying the union. 3 years ago, 5 years ago, the union marched in the streets for months and wasn't treated like this by the then administration. This NDC administration has destroyed the public service and is about to put the final nail in their coffin. Where is Mr. Integrity, Tillman Thomas? Where is Venaz and Burke? Guys who stood up against this type of behavior. Simon Says is calling on our religious leaders, civil society, union leaders, come out and stand in solidarity with the Public Workers Union. Today, public workers are prosecuted for associating with certain individuals, all sorts of clauses extra to be signed. Now listen to this release put out by this administration. And it says the government of Grenada, circular number 66, 2024, from Chief Education Officer, Ministry of Education, to officers of the schools and the curriculum divisions, heads of students, support service units, testing and the measurements unit, managers, supervisors, Grenada Union of Teachers, principals, and staff of all public pre-primary, primary, and secondary schools, October 21st, 2024. Subject: use of social media by public officers. The Ministry of Education informs that the Public Service Commission has been made aware of social media posts by public officers that have the potential to bring the service into disrepute. In this regard, public officers are advised to avoid making posts on social media that could reasonably be determined to tarnish both the reputation and that of the public service. The Commission requests all public officers to exercise responsibility in their pronouncements on social media and their broadcast platforms. Following this circular, the Commission will take appropriate action should it be reported that officers, through their posts, have brought both themselves and the public service to disrepute. Principals are asked to bring this circular to the attention of all officers on staff who are required to sign a copy to indicate that they have read and understand its contents. Kindly return the signed copy to the office of the Chief Education Officer on Monday, November 18, 2024. And this letter is signed by Mr. Dominic Jeremiah. Chief Education Officer. Workers are afraid to be live on podcasts. Well, on certain programs, that's for sure. Simon says, for one, I have met and been meeting workers daily. And they were saying to me, I listen to you, but I can't come on the live, the premiere, because I don't want them to see me on there. Can you imagine this? So I normally wait for it to finish and then go back. Yeah, I get this daily from workers. You guys are in sinking sand. And you know what? There's no way up from here. No way up. And all this from an administration whose supporters are lawless and disrespectful to the max. Take a look at this. Happened, and I'm showing you photos of a woman's general meeting of the NDC Women's Arm. Took place on Sunday, the 16th of February, at somewhere in St. Mark. Now, the lady in the red with her hands up in the air, full of energy, is a public officer, a teacher, I was told. And the other photo, the lady in the yellow dress with the black blazer, Miss Amanda Jack, is also a public officer, a teacher at the Tamsisi in Carriacou. And worse than that, she is in charge of the Parliamentary Elections Office in Carriacou. Proudly sitting there at an NDC Women's Arm meeting, wearing the colors and all, in the presence of the Prime Minister and other members of his cabinet. It continues to be allowed. It has always happened. To me, the ones who are up front and on the fence at NDC rallies, they got promoted after the elections. And yet still you're writing this hogwash letter wanting officers to sign and return. And so that is why they're afraid to go on social media, even to listen to a podcast, because you all there peeping them as peeping toms. The upcoming elections of the PWU is being tainted by operatives of the NDC administration openly supporting the candidate Fimber Thomas, who is vying for president and going up against the now PRO, Ms. Daisy Hazard. If you look on the screen, you'll see a flyer being shared and supported by Mr. Orlando Romaine. Workers, be warned of the boogeyman. Folks, this is a very serious issue and it must not be taken lightly. Today is PWU. Tomorrow is one of you right there inside the public service. Pay attention. Pay attention. Moving along. A letter was written to the Clerk of Parliament from His Majesty's opposition in an update of the questions posed in Parliament by the opposition, His Majesty's opposition. A letter was written to the Clerk of Parliament. And let me just read the letter and then and we'll take it from there. Let me get my glasses. And the letter comes from the leader of the opposition, Mount Weldale, St. George's, Grenada, on February 13, 2024. Mr. Andrew Augustine, Clerk of Parliament at Mount Weldale, St. George's, Grenada. Dear Mr. Augustine, I am very concerned with the flagrant disregard of the provisions of the standing orders of the House of Representatives that guide the manner in which questions should be posed and responded to. Accordingly, there are several questions that have been omitted from the order paper or were blatantly disregarded altogether. While I have observed for the first time in my 40 years in Parliament the desecration of the conduct of business of the House, on this occasion I am formally recording my discontent. To this end, I have chronologically documented the questions that are yet to be answered for resubmission. Requested via letter dated October the 5th, 2022, most responses were incomplete. 1. Who are the advisors and the transition leads and associated support staff for each minister and department in the public sector hired from June 23rd, 2022? 2. What are the ages, salaries, allowances, other forms of compensation, or benefits and responsibilities associated with each advisor and or transition lead and associates supported staff for each ministry and department in the public sector hired from June 23rd, 2022? 3. Are the salaries, allowances, and other forms of compensation or benefits associated with advisors and transition leads and associate staff hired in the public service from June 23rd, 2022, sourced from government revenues as collected from the people of Grenada or other sources? 4. What is the specific source of funding for the salaries for each advisor and transition lead and associated support staff for each ministry and department hired in the public sector from June 2022? Remember, folks, these questions were sent in since October 2022, the 5th of October to be exact, 2022, and not yet responded to. Who are the supervisor or supervisors of each advisor and the transition lead and associated support staff of each ministry and department hired from June 23rd, 2023? 6. What is the cost of the state of Grenada for travel, the purpose of same, and the name of each member of the travel delegation and their associated position, role, or responsibility from June 23rd, 2022? 7. Was there a change in the travel policy established by the previous government? And if so, can the Minister of Finance state what these new rules are? 8. Who are the persons or person responsible for vetting applicants and assigning the same to the statutory boards? 9. Who is responsible for paying the drivers of ministers of this new administration. Next, we have requested via letter dated the 12th, 13th, 2022. So that is the 13th of the 12th month, 2022, omitted from the order paper. And so those were left out altogether. They were removed from the order paper. What are the names, salaries, allowances, other forms of compensation for the new staff that is supporting the work of the government for each ministry and department in the public sector hired from June 23rd, 2022. This include and is not limited to the press secretary and the executive assistant of the Prime Minister. What are the responsibilities associated with each advisor and or transition lead and the new staff for each ministry and department in the public sector hired from June 23rd, 2022? What are the names, responsibilities, salaries, benefits, and allowances of each staffer in the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation, MIT? What is the cost to the state of Grenada for travel, the purpose of the same, and the name of each member of the travel delegation and their associated position, role, or responsibility since June 23, 2022? What are the names of the workers, their salaries, roles, and responsibilities in the COVID Economic Stimulus Secretariat as of December 5th, 2022? Other questions requested via letter dated March the 8th, 2023, omitted from the order paper, left out, removed from the order paper. First one, MNIB. What are the terms and conditions for the strategic partnership sought? Now, we have to remember the Prime Minister, they spoke of PPP for the MNIB, and they were supposed to return since I believe it was August 2023. We're now in 2025, and we hear nothing of the MNIB yet for all. Whoever it is, be it the clerk or the Speaker of the House himself, these questions were removed from the order paper. Will the government hold the majority shares of the partnership, that is of the MNIB? 16 Western Main Road project. What is the timeline for the completion of the project? What is the new estimated cost? What is the source of financing? What organizations have already pledged financing? Are there any changes in the plans and designs? If yes, what are these changes? Who are the personnel attached to the project? Who are the members of the Grenadian delegation on the project plans, designs, and financing? Who are the service providers? Moving on to the St. John's River project. What is the completion date of the project? And we all know nothing happened on that project since 2022, the coming of the NDC administration. And in the meantime, the second half of the River Road is being flooded out when rain falls. The next question on that, what changes have been made to the project? What are the plans for the replacement of the humpback bridge? Now, all of that it was in plan for the St. John's River project? Is there any cost overruns? Well, and no, nothing was done, so I guess there's no overruns. If yes, what is the level of the cost overruns? The Molyneux landslip. What is the time frame for the completion of the project? Well, this project is nearly in completion. I want to say it's over, but they have to put the top layer of asphalt on both sides of the bridge, and we await that. We await that. Who are the current service providers? Have new surveys been conducted? Are there any changes to the plans and designs? If yes, what are these changes? Are there any personnel changes? If yes, what are these changes? What is the criteria and the processes employed in selecting the former Labor Commissioner? Well, this lady lost her job and move on to the airport where she was sent by the Prime Minister. She must be losing her job already for all you know. And we are just questioning. These are the questions that are now appearing that was removed from the order paper. What is the qualification and background that landed her the job, and what was the reason for her dismissal? Because we know only weeks later from her employment, and she was the best thing since sliced bread for the labor job. And shortly after that, she was fired. Requested via letter May 16th, 2023. Will the Minister of Finance provide the Honorable House with a list of names of each delegation who traveled on behalf of the government from June the 23rd, 2022 to present, and that is to May 16th, 2023. We're in 2025, almost May 2025. Will the Minister of Finance inform the Honorable House of the total cost of each such trip and the event that the cost was not borne by the government? In some cases, can the minister inform the House who paid for such trips? Requested via letter date February the 16th, 2024, and removed from the order paper. Please provide a list of all expenditures paid or unpaid and the associated amounts for the independence celebration, the infamous 50th anniversary celebrations. Can you provide a list of all service providers contracted or subcontracted or engaged for all the activities of the independence celebrations, the service provided, the total value of each contract, and the amount of monies paid or to be paid for the services? This includes and is not limited to the lighting on the carriage, the Morris Bishop Highway, island-wide decoration, stage and events decoration, etc., etc. Were contracts awarded in keeping with the Public Procurement Act of Grenada? If yes, please provide evidence of same. How much funds were raised for the sale of the independence, from the sale of the independence paraphernalia in the state of Grenada? Which revenue header in the budget would the funds be categorized? And the final list requested on May the 7th, 2024, omitted from the order paper. What is the cost of the state of Grenada for travel, the purpose of the same, and the name of each member of the travel delegation and the associated position, role, or responsibility from June 23rd, 2022 to April 2024. Can the Minister of Finance provide a list of all services providers contracted, subcontracted, or engaged for all the activities of the independence celebration? The service provided, the total value of the contract, and the amount of monies paid or to be paid for the services for the period 2023 to April 30th, 2024. This includes and is not limited to the island-wide decoration, stage and events decoration, etc. How many members of the government in Parliament receive loans from the Grenada Development Bank? The name of the members and the amount from June 23rd, 2022. Can you advise if any financial support was provided to the committee responsible for the launch of Carnival in New York? If financial support was provided, what was the amount and to whom the funds were provided to? Opposition leader, I could answer some of these questions, you know. I can. The New York one, the GDB one, I can answer those, but we await their responses. How many funds were raised and provided to the Spicemas Corporation from Carnival launch in New York for the period 2023 and 2024? Please provide the names, roles, and salaries of the persons employed in the Office of the Creative Affairs. There's a reason why some of these were removed from the other people. To the leader of government business, how many people have applied for the low-income housing units? How many persons were approved for the low-income housing units? How many of the persons approved for the low-income houses have secured loans? How many persons have received the low-income houses to date? Thank you for your assistance and cooperation in this matter. Yours sincerely, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, leader of His Majesty's opposition. Folks, anything goes. Imagine all these questions, for the most part, were removed from the order paper. And the ones that were not removed were not answered. And the Speaker of the House, I've heard him asking the Minister of Finance to put a rush on it and make sure the next time they went to Parliament, they would have answers to the questions. They probably went to Parliament 20 times since some of these questions were asked, or even more. And nothing. In other news, the people of Carriacou, and I dare say Petit Martinique, are on hold, according to a news item complements GBN.
The Ministry of Carriacou and Petit Martinique Affairs has announced that the government's material assistance program for residents on the islands is on hold until further notice. This was confirmed by the ministry's public relations officer, Deanna Isaac. Speaking to GBN, Isaac explained that the pause is necessary to facilitate a review of the project.
The government's material assistance is on hold. We are reviewing the program, so persons be mindful of that. It's not that the government is stopping the assistance to the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, but with everything that you do, you must have a review. So we are reviewing the program, And in short order, persons will know after the reading of the budget, the 2025 budget, what is the next step in terms of government's assistance with the material assistance.
Over the past 7 months of recovery efforts, Isaac noted that the government distributed millions of dollars worth of building materials. She also highlighted ongoing housing initiatives aimed at ensuring that residents receive assistance in securing proper shelter.
Over the last 7 months, we have given out over $30 million in material assistance, targeting mainly the persons who got damages in terms of level 1 and level 2. As you know, Hands That Serve came in. They gave us 27 prefabricated houses, and we now have Happy Homes on the ground in Carriacou, a collaboration between Happy Homes and the government of Grenada. They're presently doing the foundation for housing at Dumfries, 20 new prefabricated houses. The people will be informed about the criteria very shortly.
Additionally, 3 of the 35 houses under the Build Back Better project were handed over to families over the weekend.
The Build Back Better homes, I am happy to report that out of the 35 homes that we have under construction, 3 of those homes last weekend were delivered to the recipients. We had a lovely ceremony, and they were very, very happy. So the Build Back Better homes are continuing. We have now started in Petit-Martinique. I'm happy to say we have 3 houses under construction in Petit-Martinique under project Build Back Better. So the government continues to do what it has to do to help Carriacou and Petit-Martinique rebound after such a devastating hurricane.
The ministry has assured residents that updates on the resumption of material assistance will be provided in due course. Rena P. Thomas, GBN News.
Thank you, GBN. Utter rubbish. Utter nonsense. Review? What you reviewing? The people under tarpaulin and tents. What are you reviewing? What criteria are you talking about? The criteria is you lost your home in Beryl. What is the other? What criteria are you looking for? Huh? What are you talking about? And now all we hearing, and we thankful and grateful for it, because if not, our people would be bare bottom in Carriacou for the prefabs houses, because that's all we hearing about. Prefab. What happened to the Build Back Better houses? What happened? These, we were told the Build Back Better homes were going to take 3 weeks to build. 9 months and counting. 3 weeks, How many 3 weeks are there in these 9 months? How many houses, Build Back Better houses, these people were supposed to have already? And we're not building one house at a time? Or should I say we're not supposed to be building one house at a time? What, one crew you have? And it's taking 8 months to produce 3 houses? Huh? 3 was delivered in Carriacou, and not one in Petit-Martinique. Not one in the forgotten. Collier, whatever happened to Petit-Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada? Whatever happened to that? All kind of people say that's going against the Constitution. It's the state of Grenada. We couldn't stop Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his surrogates from saying Petit-Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. Now, joke Jody, car Petit-Martinique is, abandoned. Totally abandoned. However, we've had a drone show, fireworks for the 51st anniversary rally at the stadium, because that's all there was. And Carriacou right now is on schedule to host Carnival 2025 with a severe water crisis, I'll have you know. And I'm speaking of drinking water and water to use otherwise. Carriacou and the Petit Martinique, as we speak, is going through. They have issues, severe water issues. And we are having carnival, which would be inviting hundreds, if not thousands, of visitors from mainland and abroad to Carriacou to use up the little bit of water the islanders have. No, something have to be wrong with that picture. Where and why are we using monies at this time to have a carnival? And there are those who are living under tents and tarpaulins on the steps underneath what was their homes, still in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Something has to be wrong with that picture. The 2025 budget document is showing, and that is what's to come there now, the 2025, if you heard me right, budget document is showing $114 million spent on burial relief or recovery. Where? Where is this $114 million spent? To do what? For who? And you're talking about reviewing? What are you reviewing? Those are the questions to be asked. Where is the money? Who benefited from that money? Also, bearing in mind, folks, the total amount allocated towards burial relief in the 2024 supplemental budget was $145,690,921. I'll read that again. The total amount allocated towards the burial relief in the 2024 supplemental budget was $149,690,921. Was any of those monies spent? Because we're hearing now, seeing now, in this 2025 budget to come, $114 million has been spent or allocated to the same burial relief. Let me tell you, I'm tired readout figures with NDC. Just monies and monies and monies, and we can't figure out where the money's gone, where it was spent. Just big, huge figures. I mean, millions, people, that this administration cannot account for, refuse to account for, and they're just calling more and more. It's appalling, really. It's appalling. We're moving on to the budget. That infamous 2025 budget. So that's the next big event on Island. It's the 2025 budget presentation, our estimates and revenues and expenditure announced by the Minister of Finance in a press conference held on February the 12th, 2025. The announced date Friday, March the 7th, 2025. As usual, I will share with you snippets of that very short but very interesting press conference. The Minister of Finance, Dennis Cornwall, opened bat, declaring that, well, he alone there, he opened the bowl, he catch his brother, the PS in the Ministry of Finance, was supposed to join him, and he never did. But I'm thinking the brother is a very smart gentleman, and I'll leave that there. So, as I was saying, the Minister of Finance opened bat, declaring that despite the devastating impact of Hurricane Beryl, the economy remained, and I'm quoting here, the economy remained resilient, recording a 3.6% growth. Here is the minister in the flesh. Listen carefully.
Economic performance in 2024. Despite the devastating impact of Hurricane Beryl, which caused damage equivalent to 16% of GDP, Grenada's economy remained resilient, recording an estimated 3.6% growth. This was driven particularly by strong tourism demand.
The economy remained resilient. That's important to bear in mind. Keep it in mind. He continued to say, speaking on the Beryl presentation.
The national budget will be presented on Friday, March 7th, under the theme, which I mentioned before, towards Vision 75, Grenada Resilient and Rising. The 2025 budget strategy focus on a resilient recovery in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, advancing transformational initiatives in healthcare, housing, skills development, and renewable energy transition.
Okay, now listen carefully as he continued.
Due to the impact of Hurricane Beryl, the 2025 budget presentation was delayed.
Now, lest we forget, the minister said at the very beginning, and I quote, despite the devastating impact of Hurricane Beryl, the economy remained resilient, recording a 3.6% growth. Now, how is it that the budget was delayed due to the impact of Hurricane Beryl? When all is well, no matter what happened with Hurricane Beryl, everything was well, money was made, growth was hard, and everything was dandy. We're resilient and we're moving on steadfastly. All at a sudden, now I have to use a Grenadian twang here. All at a sudden, Beryl is responsible for the lateness of the budget. Lest we forget also, in the supplementary estimates 2024, the total estimates for Hurricane Beryl response came up to $149,690,921. That was in September of 2024. So how is it that the Beryl is responsible for the budget being read at the end of the first quarter of 2025, which, by the way, is against the law? I spoke to you all about it. I read the section 19, that is responsible for that. And so therefore, that is section 19 of the Public Finance Management Act, which reads, Parliament shall have the sole authority and responsibility to review and approve the proposed budget prior to the commencement of the fiscal year in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. So, how is it? How is it? Beryl is blamed. Was those monies allocated from the supplementary budget? Was those monies spent? If so, where? What was it spent on? Then there was the question and the answer segment, where Linda Stricker was the lone journalist on hand to question the ministers. According to the press secretary, there were other persons there. Nobody asked a question. I guess the question section was above their pay grade. Let's hear Ms. Stricker's first question.
My other question has to do with Grenada on the regional securities exchange. Having followed it over the years, following the budget, there is usually a prospectus that is put out indicating how much money Grenada will raise on the exchange and the period of time when treasury bills and so will be auctioned. I have gone through the site. There is nothing yet for Grenada for 2025. Can you tell us when that prospectus will be uploaded and how much money Grenada plan on raising on the exchange for 2025?
Good morning again on that question, Linda. The government of Grenada regularly raise funds on the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange by means of treasury bills. In other words, every 3 months or every year, we basically roll over our treasury bills that we have on the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange and reissue a new treasury bill. Those figures generally has not changed over the years. However, to finance our 2025 budget, we may need to basically increase our borrowing from the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange. We are fine-tuning that number in terms of what exactly would be the portion of debt we would basically try and raise from the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange in terms of new borrowings, in terms of new treasury bills to be issued. And as such, I will not be able to tell you exactly how much that would be as yet, because again, we are still fine-tuning that particular information. But I can say to you that government will come to Parliament on the 7th of March with the budget presentation, as well as we will basically present to the Parliament an opportunity to have us borrow extra monies and so on for all of our development projects that will be coming up. And so I would wait until that number is finalized before I announce it to the nation. I do not want to announce it today, because if I do that today, the Ministry of Finance might be still having to fine-tune that figure. But I know what ballpark figure we were looking at. We're looking at over $725 million for additional borrowings.
So there we go. This is how we found out that the administration is broke. But I've been telling you so. They broke and have to borrow at least $725 million to support their budget. And as he said, that's a ballpark figure. It could be more. Because he want to tell us, he come to the press conference, but there ain't nothing he want to tell us in stone, because it could change and they're not there yet and blah, blah, blah. Right? $725 million. And you know, everything, as he said, is not finalized yet. So it could be more. Now that figure, $725 million, is 70% of their entire budget. And you hear people blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's always have to borrow for budget. Yeah, we know that. We're not saying they don't have to borrow. But we have never encountered that amount of money tripled and quadrupled the amount that was ever borrowed. As a matter of fact, I surely believe if we add up all the borrowed amounts, ain't coming to 725 million. That is over the past 2 years, right? We have here in 2022 330 million. In 2023, 350 million. In 2024, 375 million. And we have here now 725 million. How we reach there? Why do you all need all that money? When asked where are we going to get that monies from, this is what the minister had to say.
Yes, can the minister share with us which agencies will be targeted for that borrowing? Is it international agencies, regional agencies, the African Bank, the Saudi Arabia Fund? Which agencies would government be targeting to do that more than 700 million borrowing? And my final question for now is, in the IMF report, the mention was made of addressing data gaps. One of the data, I do have quite a bit of data journalism, and one of the data that I use is the fiscal report. A review of it up to, while you were speaking, the last time fiscal report was put up was August 2024. Even the FROC has make mention of not getting data on a timely basis. How does the Ministry of Finance plan on addressing that as we go forward?
Well, I know that data is an issue still within various departments. Notwithstanding that, I know that we have made effort to bring up to date the fiscal reports that we normally have to produce. I would not want to.
Local agencies, the government will be targeting to seek that borrowing, the more than 700 million borrowing. What agencies are government plan on requesting such monies from?
Well, government has a wide array of persons or institutions or other avenues that they can actually use to seek those funding. You mentioned one earlier, which is the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange, where we are intending to increase our borrowings on the stock exchange. We have friendly nations that we are going to be talking to see if we can get funding from them at very concessionary rates. We also have the traditional Bretton Woods institutions like the IMF and the World Bank that we can target. We also have the the Caribbean Development Bank as another institution we can challenge for funding, as well as any other international markets that we can basically seek funding from. One of the things that we have to bear in mind is that all our borrowing will be looking at obtaining concessionary financing for our borrowings.
So in other words, we ain't sure where we're getting the money borrowed yet. I mean, that's clear, right? Friendly who? Friendly neighbors? We looking for friendly neighbors? When friendly neighbors help us up to now, they don't know where their money gone. One. And what y'all turn around and do? Host a big heads of government meeting, bill waste a set of money with a CARICOM roundabout that people don't even see when they passing now. Really, all we seen is them fig tree that will fall on just now. Waste of monies to show off. Run and pitch the True Blue Main Road 5 times because we tried to do it in rain, midnight, to impress the heads of government, and had to dig it up and repave and dig it up and repave and dig it up and repave. I don't even know if we finished yet. Waste of resources. So obviously, as I said before, most of us were stunned by the huge borrowings announced by the Minister of Finance to sustain the 2025 budget. And most turned to social media to vent. When we have an administration that have not prioritized its spending, the nation will complain when there isn't enough to cover the budget. When we waste $22.5 million on friends, their relatives, surrogates, for a celebration, and we yet to know how it was spent because we definitely cannot see how it was spent. So we're waiting on answers from the administration, how it was spent. We must say ooh and ow at $725 million needed to be borrowed for our budget, towards our budget, our 2025 budget. And we also know now that you're broke and that your budget bust. The 2024 budget bust. And then monies are missing and you can't find them. And that is why the budget was delayed and has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with burial. Folks, the budgetary allocation for the Ministry of National Security, Home Affairs, Public Administration, Information and Disaster Management moved from 4 million in the 2023 budget to $37 million in the 2024 budget. Did you hear me? From 4 million in the 2023 budget to 33 million in the 2024 budget, an increase of 825%. This increase was largely attributed to a 27,132,039 allocation for the provision of security contracts and companies, most of which are aligned with the National Democratic Congress. I got my answer, folks. We've been asking how much money are being spent and all these little pop-up security firms, because we know you all told them when they come looking for jobs, go form a security company and come back. $27,132,039 was allocated for security services contracts for companies owned by NDC surrogates and supporters. An 825% increase. I never heard that yet in my entire life. It is alleged that members of the cabinet, talk show hosts, so-called once upon a time advisor, all owned security firms. The question is, who owns Logistic Solutions Grenada Limited Security Services? Logistic Solutions Grenada Limited Security Services. Who owns that security company? And of course, the question remains, who owns Patriot Security? If you look on the screen, and I don't want you to say I'm making up stories. You know how it goes with Simon Says. We like to show the facts. You would see the expenditure and estimates of the 2024 budget, 418, and the highlighted figure there that tells us how much, the millions upon millions that was spent on the pop-up security services. And we want to have money now for 2025, money done. The value of these security contracts is equivalent to 41% of the recurrent budget of the police force. 41%. The travel budget of the government, and we've been asking for that as well. The travel budget had increased by 115% in the 2024 budget. It is no secret that the Prime Minister and his cabinet runs Grenada from the clouds. I often wonder how it is, especially the Prime Minister, who Grenada is just in, where he just in transit in Grenada now, has 8 ministries to run, and that's under his name. But we all know he runs all the other ministries because the other ministers, they have no tooth, they have no teeth, and they have no spine. So he runs these ministries as well. And we wonder why the country is in such a mess. How is he doing it from the clouds? How is he doing it from wherever else in the world but Grenada? Yeah? $2.5 million in the 2024 budget went towards travel. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade has a $13.4 million increase relative to what was spent in 2023. The entire increase caters to operational needs of the friends and associates of the government holding diplomatic passports in missions, consulates, and embassies across the globe. This represents $11.4 million more than what the previous administration required to conduct foreign policies. $11.4 million more. And we expect to have money? Case in point, Zia Azam Rahman, Consul General, Grenada Consulate, Dubai, in the 2024 budget, $832,196 was allocated for the consulate in Dubai. So that's the total amount for the consulate in Dubai. $832,196. Look on the screen, you'll see the figure and vote 16. It's highlighted there. Consul General Zia Azam Rahman, annual expenses is a total, listen my friends, of $323 for him alone. 65% of the total budgeted for the entire Dubai consulate. So 65% of that $832,196 goes to him and his family. Let's break that down in Eastern Caribbean dollars. Right here, right? Under earnings, monthly, his salary is $17,390.88. His rent is $18,188. 1,000 plus shy of the Prime Minister's $20,500 rent. Financial assistance to cover cost of school fees for his kids. Folks, who paying your school fee? With a little $2,000 you're getting at a month, 1,005. Some of you might make it 3,000, 4,000. Who paying your children's school fees? Your children's school fees are to come out and athletes. This gentleman, after all that he's making there in his salary alone, still was given $9,531, $9,531 with some change towards his kids' school fees. And that was okayed by the spineless bunch. Let me see if I can pull it out here from my stash. Right? That was okayed by the yes, look at it here. By the spineless bunch in the cabinet. Let me get my glasses. Right? It reads December 5th, 2023. Mr. Zia Rahman, Consul General, Grenada Consulate, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Dear Mr. Rahman, this letter serves to inform you that the Cabinet, at its meeting on October the 2nd, 2023, approved a special case, the payment of $114,376.62 per annum, do the math, to you as financial assistance to cover the cost of annual school fees for your children. Please note, the payment will commence from the 1st of September 2023, retroactive. You know that's a retroactive government. So they'll go back and pay him for, yeah. Be guided accordingly, sir. Be guided accordingly. And we're wondering why we can't fund our budget, right? So that was the school fees. A total of, my friends, $45,110.26 monthly. Let's do that, multiply that by 12 months in a year, right? And his annual earnings are, or is, anyone could work, $541,323. The former Consul General in Dubai made a total of 3,000 USD, covered all expenses, all. So a monthly expense $8,010. The former consulate in Dubai. $810. Folks, something wrong with this picture. Talk about spending more than we borrowing is our beloved Prime Minister.
So we have to ask ourselves, if we spend a significant portion of our resources in the non-productive sector, and that is exactly what concrete and steel is, non-productive. If we invest the vast majority of our resources in those areas, how are we going to grow the economy? How are we going to grow our GDP? How are we going to increase production in agriculture, in fishing, in manufacturing, in the digital economy? We are not going to. Because spending money on concrete and steel does not result in the medium or long-term growth of your economy. And it is compounded when you are borrowing to do so. The budget statement clearly says that there is a deficit of close to $100 million. In simple terms, the government intends to spend more than it can earn by at least $100 million. And where is this financing going to come from? It's going to borrow to do so. And our debt to GDP ratio stands at 70%. And if you look at the budgetary allocation, 34% of the entire budget, 34% is being spent to pay debt. And yet, you will present a budget that puts you in a position where you are going to borrow another $100 million. And you say to the people of Grenada, oh, borrowing is sustainable. Citizens of Grenada, borrowing on an individual level, when you cannot repay, is not sustainable. Those of us who go to a bank for a loan knows that the bank will not give you the loan if you cannot pay back the loan. And you know if you cannot pay back the loan, it spells disaster for you. You will lose your house. You will lose your car. It is the same thing on a national level. If our government continuously spends more than it receives and borrows to finance the difference, we will continuously be in a position where the vast majority of our resources are spent trying to repay unsustainable debt.
Folks, the Prime Minister in that clip, well, he was leader of the opposition then, the NDC then, was complaining over $100 million that the then administration had to borrow. $100 million, huh? Today, he turned around and want to borrow in excess of $725 million. Be careful, little mouth, what you say. When you stay in your yard and you look at the neighbor's lawn and you see it nice and green, you don't know what they're doing to keep it green. So you don't think, just stay so and think, mine could be green so too. Be careful, little mouth, what you say. And yes, sir, you are asking where they're going to get the money from? We would like to know, the people would like to know, the nation would like to know, where are you all going to get the $725 million from? And then there is the acting prime minister, the designated acting prime minister, wherever he was in the world representing Grenada, so they say, decided he's going to make a post Because why are everybody talking about this $725 million? And he said, I'm going to read to you, folks, be focused. Sometimes you have to sit back and listen to those who want this government to fail before responding. Truth is, this NDC administration is doing much better job in managing our economy than the previous administration. See, from the International Organization report, reference the IMF and the World Bank reports. Economics 101. I'll break it down to the simplest form. If you have $10,000 in the bank, would you withdraw $10,000 to buy a house, leaving you with zero? I'll stop here now. So, mic drop. Folks, well, that depends. You just might want to use your $10,000 to build your house. But you can't compare a domestic situation like that with a government. And to make bad matters worse, this from someone whose businesses went bankrupt, buying for $5 and selling for $1, writing checks for monies he doesn't have in the bank, and writing another check to cover the first bounce check. So you ain't have the $25,000, but you're writing another check. When the people call in the check bounce, write another check for another $25,000 to bring to them. This is from somebody who's talking about if you have $10,000, if you go use your $10,000. BS. BS has nothing to do with this $725 million. Nothing to do with it. But more importantly, he has no clue what he's talking about. Pure ignorance. Withdrawing all of one's $10,000 from the bank to purchase a house, leaving $0 in their savings. A foolish analogy for a serious crisis. And I'm quoting someone here in an article I saw reading about it. His economics is laughable, they said. And scandalous, if I might say so. Enough to give him win in the South.
Tonight, I want to teach Doc some economics. You're into old alone. I want to teach him some economics tonight. Jason, come. Come, Jason. When the court made the ruling that pension have to be paid, at that point in time, our country incurred a national debt to the people. It is approximately 400 million. The interest rate on that 400 million is 6%. It is 6%. That is the interest rate on the 400 million. You have to pay to the people. What my leader is saying, what Deacon Mitchell is saying, right now, governments are getting a loan for approximately like 1% interest rate. What Deacon is saying, we should take a loan and pay the pension. We are not adding anything to our national debt. As a matter of fact, we are decreasing it with the amount of interest that we have to pay. Let me show you why. When, let's say Jason Jason here is the people. Now let me get one more person. Come. Jason here is the people. Come across here. This year is the pension amount. 400 million. I owe Jason the people, right? Now what I'm saying, folks, at the time when I owe this money here, I say, Jason, I owe you this money. But if I pay you, I'm incurring 6% every year. That's in interest, right? So I'm saying, I will take a loan from the bank here and pay Jason the 400 million, right? So now, Jason could go. I owe Jason again because I pay him. That's the people. I pay the pension. Who I owe now is the commercial bank or whichever bank you take it from. I owe this bank. So now you're not increasing the national debt. You understand? Because now, I owe Jason again. Now I owe the bank here at an interest rate of 1%. Instead of owing Jason the 400 million at a rate of 6%, I'm going to bank at a rate now of 1%. And that's all it is. We are not increasing the national debt. You understand? And he's playing on our ignorance. But we have to stay focused. And every time they come with these things, I will continue to debunk it and talk about it.
That's all I vote for in the South. Kukute. Nothing he said that makes sense. And they're making noise. That's what all I vote for in the South. Now, what did his leader do? Yes, on the campaign trail he said he was going to borrow to pay the pension. But he didn't just say he was going to borrow. He said he was going to borrow if he had to, because he wasn't sure what he was going to meet. What did he do on arrival when he met the $500 million in the consolidated fund? What did he do? He spent it. He spent it all. He paid it. And if all you're so brave and you think the way to go is to borrow and don't empty your savings, why aren't you borrowing now to continue paying the pension instead of this susu plan only coming with the deducting the people's money without their permission from their salaries? Continue to borrow and borrow down the road to pay the pension, because pension is not a one-off thing, in case you didn't know. It's not just retroactive and you're done. You have to pay monthly. So go and borrow and pay the workers from the consolidated fund. What you borrow, you're paying them without deducting from the side. That's what they want, They want to be a part of the 1958 plan. Nonsense. Kukute, all kind of drink, come here, stand up there. What you say there, nothing is the same. Pure tatter. Government's money is in the transformational fund, taxes and revenues, recurring. Every day, people paying taxes, revenues, paying, the port, every day, every day. So at which point they go up 10,000 in the consolidated fund and use it all, and that's it, money done. Eh? You think that's wet saltfish? Eh? What nonsense? And this is who is our acting prime minister designate. This is who. This is why we're in the mess. And as a matter of fact, governing over us more than the prime minister. Therefore, Minister Andy Williams, a well-managed economy does not run out of cash. No, does not run out of cash. suggesting in your post, Andy Williams, that your government has left its surplus in the bank. So y'all didn't spend what was in the bank. That's what you're trying to tell us. So what's in the bank there? And that's why you're looking to borrow. But you have in the bank, you ain't spending that. You're going to borrow to do to do your business. That's a lie. Where's the surplus? You have to borrow $725 million to support your budget. And that's a total insult to the Grenadian people for this deceit you're trying to push in front of our face. For the world you're trying to cover our faces with. When we all know that your government, the Deacon Mitchell-led NDC administration, is operating on a deficit. Your mid-year review 2024 report told us so. I have to go to my stash. Again, the fiscal income of 2024 shows a notable overall deficit of 144 million compared to a budget surplus of EC 0.5 million, resulting in a large negative percentage variance. The primary balance includes grants, is estimated, including grants, is estimated to be a deficit of EC 82.2 million. Yeah, it's here in your mid-year review 2024 report. And in Appendix 1, the real sector summary, come down to real gross domestic product. And it reads in 2019, 0.7, in 2020, 13.8, in 2021, and that was minus 13.8. That was COVID time. In 2021, 4.7. In 2022, 7.3. In 2023, 4.7. In 2024, 3.9. And that is contracting, getting smaller, right? Getting smaller. So we've been operating in a deficit. Granted, the IMF, in their positive assessment of Grenada, the economic resilience and growth prospects, noted that Grenada's robust economy performance through June 2024, driven by strong tourism growth, moderating inflation, and a narrowing current deficit on the balance of payments. So the IMF is saying, though it's been reduced, we are still operating on a deficit. So when you're trying to suggest to the unassuming out there that you all have this money pile up, then you're all not going to spend it just so. You're going to borrow. You are deceiving the nation yet another time with your lies. Or you are trying to deceive the nation. But as long as I have the breath of life in me, I will expose your lies and keep, at least try to keep you all honest. So, where is the surplus coming from, Andy? Where is the surplus you're talking about? Where is it coming from? I suggest you stay in your lane. Plant flowers, paint the curbs and the bridges and the walls and the pedestrian crossing. Right now, we need some touch up on the pedestrian crossings. Stay in your lane. February the 4th, 2025, St. George's, Grenada. The government of Grenada acknowledges the conclusion of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, Executive Board's 2024 Article 4 consultation, which highlights Grenada's sustained economic growth and resilience amidst recent challenges. Good reading, good reading. And likewise, the former administration used to get good reading, but what y'all used to say? Bogus figures. What figures we getting now? Be careful, little mouth, what you say. On January 24th, the IMF, the Washington-based global financial institution, released its latest assessments of Grenada's recent economic performance following consultation by its executive board on the 24th of January 2025. The executive board assessment and the full staff report can be accessed online. The previous assessment was concluded in July 2023. The conclusions of the 2024 review was delayed to incorporate the impact of Hurricane Beryl, which struck Grenada in July of 2024. However, according to the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, the IMF report is really no big deal. Let's hear him.
The IMF doesn't run a country. The World Bank doesn't run a country. They've never done so, right? And at the end of the day, saying that you have a good report from the IMF doesn't mean anything if we have significant unemployment, if we have persons who are hungry within our country, if we have children who are not going to school because they do not have access to internet, they do not have access to tablets. And those are the issues we need to talk about, not a report from the IMF, frankly.
Okay.
Like that IMF. You never run a country yet. What are you talking about? Who you to tell us anything, good or bad? Hence, Finance Minister Dennis Cornwall, at his press conference on the IMF, here is the Minister of Finance on the IMF report,
which boosted service-related industries and positively impact various sectors. Inflation moderated significantly, declining from 2.7% in 2023 to 1.4% in 2024, reflecting improved price stability. Strong citizenship by investment, CBI revenues, and the CRIF payout helped strengthen Grenada's fiscal position, enabling a positive response to the devastation caused by Hurricane Beryl. The current account deficit, which had been narrowed in as of June 2024, temporarily widened due to increased imports related to post-hurricane construction. The financial sector remained stable with no significant disruptions.
Minister of Finance, if you could understand what he said there, is very proud of the report from the IMF. According to the IMF, our financial situation remains stable with no significant disruptions. But what the IMF knows, they never run a country yet. Here is the political leader of the NDC on a review of the IMF on Grenada in 2023. I believe it was 2023.
The IMF has given Grenada an excellent mark on their most recent reviews. I'm not sure which one of you two would like to answer this. And in terms of the handling of the economy during COVID, and what is of course, Anything about this statement would you like to add? Anything about the statement that has been said by the IMF that you would like to add towards this in terms of the excellent mark that we get? Anything you like to add to that? You folks like to add to that?
But
I'm not sure. Who wants to take a go at it? Go ahead.
But I was going to say, I read the statement. I didn't see that the statement said it was an excellent mark. So I'm not sure if I agree with your analysis. I think the statement was simply, frankly, a regurgitation of what was told to the IMF by the government of Grenada. In a nutshell, this was a virtual review of, and these reviews are standard. Because of the challenges posed by COVID-19, the IMF folks did not attend or come to Grenada. It was a virtual review. And coming out of these virtual reviews, the IMF will essentially publish a one-page statement, which is what it did.
A regurgitation, he said, of what was being told to the IMF. Be careful, little mouth, what you say. It is so obvious that we are managed by a bunch of incompetent misfits who all seem to be interested in enhancing themselves and their close family and friends, a small circle of them benefiting tremendously. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell has his sister working out of his Ministry of Infrastructure with him. Minister Karine James, her sister, resigned her job in a private entity to go work for the government of Grenada. Minister Philip Telesford, his wife is now working for the government of Grenada, a subsidiary of the government of Grenada. Minister David Andrew, his wife, is now working at the Juvenile Center, a government entity. Minister Andel has his brother working in his office in St. Patrick West, after being fired for corruption by the previous administration, working in that same St. Patrick West office as the personal assistant to the then Anthony Boswain for the NNP. He's back now working with his brother. The cabinet secretary owns several businesses hired by the government of Grenada. Decoration, led security firms, trucking company, you name it. The chairman of the Spiceman's Corporation, tight as wax with the prime minister, now owns a solar company just to service the government of Grenada with solar lights throughout the island, all the fields. His brother and brother-in-law doing the installing. His brother is the chairman of the Housing Authority. A senior public officer, a police officer, a strong supporter, surrogate of the NDC, received 8 security contracts taken from 8 different individuals after the elections in 2022 and given to him. He has his full-time job. He has a security firm that had hit rock bottom. It's now back up and running. One individual, and that's 8 that I know of. 8. One lash, as they would say. Minister Lennox Andrew, daughter is also hired by the government under a bogus title getting together with Delma Thomas' son, receiving a pretty hefty salary, some survey something under the disguise. He received loans from the GDB to send another daughter on scholarship abroad. Minister Karine James' boyfriend, hired as advisor to the Ministry of Agriculture, never sat in that office a day in his life, collecting a salary of, I think, $6,000 for advisor to agriculture, but following her across the world in meetings and collecting it's $5,100 a month salary as advisor, and is now ambassador to the ocean. To ask me what that is, and has his permanent day job at the St. George's University. Nepotism at its best. Orlando Romain, Piero of the NDC party, special envoy, ambassador for ICT and the creatives. He's in charge of the creative desk. He is in charge of GIS, Government Information Service, on several boards. He is also appointed to the Afro-Exim Bank Creative Africa Advisory Group, and you just name it. He is collecting money from ministries and subsidiaries for retainers. The lottery office, the planning authority. I believe the planning authority is still waiting on a website you're supposed to create for them, and you have collected the monies. Andre Saint Bernard, treasurer of the NDC, special envoy, ambassador for investment and development, CBI agent, chairman of the GDB Bank, on several boards, the CBI, Grand Lake, in charge of the CES, holding the bag of money. So, travels with the prime minister everywhere. To be continued. I have more of these sort of nepotism to bring to you. The prime minister described that type of nepotism best. He called it politicians by default.
If we do not recruit our young people and get them active in politics, you will end up with reluctant politicians or politicians by default. And when they become politicians by default, usually the only thing they're interested is in themselves, their friends, and their family.
I couldn't say it better. Folks, we're going to wrap up with questions as usual. As of January 2025, deductions are being made from the salaries of public workers towards the new pension SUSU savings scheme. I got calls from workers who said they didn't sign up. Some at the supermarket, some at the mall. In passing, there are complaints. They're not sure what the process is, but monies were deducted from their salaries. My question to the government is, where are the monies deducted from the workers going at this time, at this moment? Is there a fund in place for that? Are the trustees in place? Who are they? Who are the trustees? Do we have a board of trustees? So where is the money? Where are the monies going? Another trampoline for the NDC, like the NLA, the NTRC, the NIS, the Postal Corporation, NAWASA. With NAWASA, I understand over $50 million were left there. And today it's down to 1-point-something million. Lest we forget the utterances of the Minister Lennox Andrew, Minister for Economic Development, Planning, Agriculture, Lands, Fisheries and Cooperatives, a former public officer himself, in fact, acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance for many years. This is his explanation for where the money going.
Question for the Minister for Agriculture is actually linked to what the Minister of Finance would have said. The Minister of Agriculture mentioned $11.6 million that will be distributed, utilized to the average farmer or the fisher folks. Can he tell us whether or not the money for the fisher folk is from the CREF course funding premium that we have? And would, if the money for the agricultural people, is this from the CREF funding or the emergency funding and Section 22 of the Public Management Act? And when will government be going to the Parliament to get the necessary approval to supplementary budget?
All right, thank you, Linda, for your question. But actually, the best person to answer that is the Minister of Finance, not the Minister of Agriculture. Anytime you talk about money, you have to go to the Minister of Finance, But be that as it may, well, first of all, let me say, all expenditure comes from what is referred to as the consolidated fund. So whatever money government gets, it goes into the treasury. It's the part of the consolidated fund, and expenditures are made out of that fund. In government, we do not earmark resources. So we do not say, for example, that a particular source of income goes for a particular expenditure. That doesn't happen. Obviously, under the CRIF payout, some monies were for the fishing industry. Good. So theoretically, it would seem that those money have to be used for that purpose, but it is not correct, in my opinion, to say that money is specifically used for the fishing. It's all part of the consolidated fund, and from there we have monies that we can use for whatever expenditure government needs to incur.
Minister said, and I have to repeat that, a former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance said in government they do not earmark monies for expenses. Anything goes, in other words. The money for the fisheries was could spend in tourism, and that's not in government, that's in your government, sir. That's why we have to borrow $725 million now. 70% of your billion-dollar budget you need to borrow. Never in the history of, but you know what? You're like foot. So this is the first time in the history of budget reading in Grenada, that a government, an administration, have to borrow almost the entire budget. First time. Take win. Or the take win. Where are the monies? Speaking of the Postal Corporation, what is that the Postal Corporation is broke and about to go under. As a matter of fact, what is they are at the stage of borrowing to keep their heads above water at this point in time. This NDC administration met an amount in excess of $3 million, money saved up to purchase a property, since they've been given notice to leave where they are years now, and they're renting from the Port Authority. We all know the Postal Corporation is not a very lucrative entity in these times, since internet, MoneyGram, Western Union, digital cameras, cell phones, etc. Nobody writes a letter anymore. You send an email, you text your friend, WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, all the ones you all know. They have not been paying rent for where they are now. It's a government entity. The Port Authority is a government entity. As I understand it, they receive statements, but they don't pay. And that's not just now. That is from even the previous administration. Right? So they're able to save a little, right? Put in their savings, Minister Andy. They have a little surplus. And so their money gone. Their $3 billion plus money gone. but they have to move, and they would like to move. Where the money gone? Did you lend it, loan it, or give it to the administration to help pay bills? Is that for real? Was that in exchange for making all the workers permanent? I am happy they're permanent, and I'm sure they are happy they're permanent. And they probably would be even more happy after this, because I know you are going to go and harass the workers about who gave me the information. Don't even go to them. Please, leave them alone. It's nobody in there. It's nobody in there. And you won't find out either. So, the workers are worried that sooner than later, they will be out of a job, permanent or not, if it's continued. Business is continued the way it's going on at the post office. So the Postal Corporation decided to lease a brand new renovated building on the Carronade, the former Phoenix factory. At this moment, they're paying rent, though they're still across on the port. They're paying rent for it in excess of $35,000 a month to a company, Phoenix Agency, borrowing monies to do the retrofitting that you see going on. If you pass the carnage and you look in, you'd see they're doing finishing work on the inside. That is to accommodate the Postal Corporation. In excess of $35,000, almost $40,000 they're paying. Mind you, don't forget, they're not paying rent where they are now. And they're moving into a building, barely making ends meet. They're not in there yet, and they start to pay their lease. Well, that's how it goes. When you take the people keys, because you are, and it's your problem what you want to put and how you want to fix it. So they have to pay. The question is, can the Postal Corporation afford to keep up paying that lease, pay workers, and maintain the daily runnings of the corporation? Is it feasible? Let me ask the Minister of MIT, who knows economics and teaching mathematician, economics, one who, an economist, economics. So this question is for you, Andy Williams. Should the corporation spend all their pennies paying rent instead of a mortgage? The people started looking at places to buy. As I understand it, they even looked at the building that the RGPF house now is living in now, and other places they looked at. They've been looking. I think they purchased land, so they might have lands that they can use to build something. Huh? What do you think, Andy? What do you think, Minister Williams? Do you think they should spend that kind of money on rent or on a mortgage? What do you think? All you water white. And as I spoke of that RGPF building, I don't know what thought this go into anything they do, any kind of structure, any kind of proper planning, any kind of extensive thinking. Because as it is, when tide is high, when rain falls, the water comes up in the road right there. Can you imagine? we have notice of a tsunami, bailout we, where we police going, they put a whole police force in a building below water level on the carronage. If, God forbid, we get notice of a tsunami, our first responders, our police officers have to bail out, run for their life. Well, I hope they have a backup RGPF station, because this not looking good. Anyhow, I must commend them. The building looks beautiful on the carronage. Finally, we await the overrun, the costing of it and the overruns, but it looks beautiful. It's pretty. And according to what is ACP calling? ACP, Sumpy. Transformation at its best. Transformation at its best. Nonetheless, we broke as a nation. We are broke. We're scraping the bottom of the barrels to make ends meet. No wonder why Nawasa has to up the reconnection fees to so-called refundable deposits. And you might have heard of this Nawasa saga. And for those of you who ain't know, I want to ask you very much to be careful and try your best to pay your bills. Because if you have a $20 bill and get disconnected for it as a domestic client, customer to Nawasa, you have to pay $240 reconnection fee. And if you not domestic and you commercial, they have tiers. And 0 to 2,800 gallons, you have to pay $340 to be reconnected. 2,801 gallon to 20,000 gallons, you have to pay $760 to be reconnected. 20,001 gallon to 100,000 gallons, you have to pay $4,000 to be reconnected. And over $100,000 up to 8,000 gallons, you have to pay, no, over 100,000 gallons, sorry, you have to pay $8,000 to be reconnected. So I was told by the customer service rep that since this new administration came into office, these are some of the new fees and whatever structure put in place by this NDC administration. The big question is, where are these monies? The CRIF monies, the monies from the friendly governments in the region, the monies from the patriotic Grenadians like Adam DeCall, the 1 million USD from the US aid, according to Minister Cornwall. He's not sure if we get it or how much we got.
Minister, did we have time to get the $1 million that was promised to us through USAID following the passage of Beryl? Did Grenada get that money?
I wouldn't want to say yes at this moment because, again, I know we got funding from them in the early stages and so on. I'm not sure it's up to the $1 million, but I think we would have gotten some funding from them. I can't confirm it's $1 million or not. I would have to get my accountant general to confirm the figures that we got.
And where is the 1 million USD loan from Saudi Arabia, sir? Speaking of Saudi Arabia, what's going on in Saudi Arabia and in Dubai that the rest of us are not aware of? Minister Andy Williams left Grenada to attend the Independence Gala in New York and then traveled to Dubai, sent by the Prime Minister to represent him in the World Government Summit, WGS. Listen to the agenda. Emerging global influence, government efficiency, financing the future, leadership strategy, global trade economy, way above the pay grade of the Minister of MIT. Was that a means to an end? Minister, what was your contribution to that forum? We ain't seen nothing, we ain't hear nothing but except for your photo ops. What did you learn? What did you come away with? What was in the briefcase? Look, I like the color of the briefcase. A nice tan. You all see there? Nice tan color brief bag. That's a brief bag, folks. That's not a briefcase. To date, there was no official release coming from the Prime Minister's office that the minister went to Dubai. Now, after the Minister of Finance press conference on February the 12th, the one where he ain't really know anything yet, because nothing is finalized. On the 12th of February 2024, the minister was sent to a mission by the Prime Minister again. No press release stating such. The Minister of Finance is the chairperson of the Public Finance Committee. Now, I don't know if you know, but the Public Finance Committee has to meet before every budget to sort out things, right? But the Prime Minister found a reason to send the Minister of Finance to Saudi Arabia. And so the Prime Minister, was acting Minister of Finance, and so he chaired the meeting. So the minister went to St. Kitts from Grenada, where he attended the Monetary Council meeting. From there, went to Saudi Arabia via the UK, where he spent a couple days. And from Saudi Arabia, as we speak, he is in Dubai. Something is going on, is happening between Saudi Arabia and Dubai that the rest of us is not aware of. Again, I ask, what is going on in Saudi Arabia and Dubai? Grenada, wake up, open your eyes, pay attention, drink water, and mind your business. Is it true Orlando Romaine has retainers in most ministries and statutory bodies? Is it true the planning authority still waiting on a website he was supposed to create for them, and which he collected a large sum of monies for already? The people would like to know, what is Orlando Romaine's overall monthly earnings received from the government of Grenada? To Andy Williams, where is the clinic in the south situated?
Brothers and sisters, we are in 2022. We are in 2022. And our medical center in the south is someone downstairs. Our medical center in the south is someone downstairs. Imagine that. Listen, people of the south, let me hear you. Tell them we need a polyclinic in the south. Tell them we need an ambulance 24/7 in the south. Tell them we need doctors on call 24/7 in the south. And tell them we need nurses 24/7 in the south. And if they have to lock them up for that, tell them to lock them up. We need it in the south.
that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. Thank you for joining us in another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.